The next time that Patsy Burrell calls me and invites me to go with her to Bristol to the race, Becky, we will invite you so you can know a little bit more about NASCAR. And I'm waiting on the invitation, Patsy, again. Well, 15 people this morning as I got here told me how brief this sermon needed to be. I understand. So, if you'll just give me about, 10 minutes, we'll have the main course, okay? I'm like cheese and crackers before a meal, and just about 10 minutes, okay? Without the church, if the church didn't even exist, there's no telling where you and I would be this morning, but we sure wouldn't be here in this beautiful sanctuary. And if you think about it, probably most of us would not even know each other. Now, you may have gotten to know each other as neighbors, or you may have worked together or been in a civic club together or something. You may have met each other at a ball game or the grocery store. If you have ever shopped at Walmart in your life, you would know my wife. But you get the point. We would not be here at this time and in this place, and most of us would really not even know each other if the church had never been born. So this is a big day. It is a red letter day in the life of the church. For our church, of course, it is a special day, but let's also don't lose sight of the fact that for the whole Christian church, this is a very important day. Pentecost. It's a day we celebrate what is frequently referred to as the birthday of the church. It's pretty well established that the writer of Acts was the same person who gave us the Gospel of Luke. We don't know who the author was, but following tradition, we will refer to the author as Luke. And I wish we could get inside his head this morning as he tells this story, because it is our story too. The dreams and visions of those first followers of Jesus had just about faded after the initial enthusiasm, and it was a time of questioning, praying, and waiting. It was a time of uncertainty, confusion, and hesitancy, if any of that is familiar with you. But something happened, and hope was renewed, and clarity of purpose was restored among those early followers of Jesus. Something happened, or you and I would certainly not be here worshiping together this morning in this place. The story begins with a mighty rush of wind. Wind again. We have felt this and heard this wind before. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and earth, which is to say, when God created all that is, out of nothingness, in utter darkness, a wind swept over the face of the waters. When it all started, pick your theory. Modern science doesn't disturb our faith. In the beginning of it all, the wind was blowing. The Spirit was there. The Spirit was right in the middle of it from the very beginning. It's a classic biblical symbol for the presence of that which is unseen and is indescribable, known to us only partially, seen by us only through a glass dimly. The holy presence was there in the beginning. What a great way for Luke to begin his story, saying, in effect, guess what? That same wind, that holy presence was there. That wind was blowing again when the church came alive. And not only was there wind, fire was there too. Another classical biblical image. You remember the burning bush. You remember that when God spoke the Ten Commandments to Moses, Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke because the Lord had descended in fire, as we read in Exodus 20. Wind, the breath of God, the Spirit of God, and fire, the power of God. When the church began, there was wind and fire, and there was more. They came together in one place, Luke says, and there were people there from all different places: Parthians, Medes, residents of Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia. Those are the names that I can pronounce. There are several other names in there as well. And they spoke in different dialects and different languages, and yet they understood each other. Another powerful and beautiful biblical image. Luke is making another striking connection that his first century readers would have immediately understood. The Tower of Babel. All people have one language, but God confuses their language. People began to speak in different language. Communication breaks down. People are no longer able to understand each other, and so they are afraid and they scatter over the face of the earth, as the Genesis story tells us. And now in Luke's story, people come together speaking different languages, but God gives them the gift of understanding. Powerful image. Think of it. You speak Russian, and I speak English, Southern English, from the state of Georgia, Southern English. But when you speak, I hear your Russian language in my native tongue. You're speaking Russian, but it sounds like Southern redneck English to me. What a powerful image. Luke uses the most dramatic images possible: wind, fire, and the power of mutual understanding. Unity in diversity. That's the picture. Remember the times in which Luke was writing, and remember the styles and forms of literature common and familiar to those first reading and hearing this story. Get inside Luke's head and see what he is trying to say. They all came together in one place. They had followed Jesus, loved Jesus, committed themselves to him and to his way of living. But now Jesus was no longer with them, and they were bewildered, forlorn, uncertain, discouraged. But something happened. Somehow, once again, this unseen and indescribable force, this powerful presence that we know only in part and see only through a glass dimly, this holy presence shows up like a mighty wind, like tongues of fire. And the disciples were caught up in this powerful, loving presence, and they were reinvigorated and re-energized, and their hearts were on fire with a renewed sense of purpose, calling, and hope. And they knew in that moment that Jesus was not as long gone as they thought he was. He was out of sight, and they could no longer hear him or reach out and touch him, but the love and devotion that they had for him, the commitment they had to him and to his way of living, it all came rushing back. Wind and fire, wind and fire. And they experienced his Spirit. And without a shadow of doubt, they knew that Jesus was still with them and still calling them to be his people. They could no longer physically see him, but they realized they could still follow him. It must have hit them like a ton of bricks. Well, he is with us. He is as real as ever, and is still calling us to follow him and to do the things that he did, and to love like he loved, to forgive as he forgave, to reach out to those who are hurting like he did. They felt this surge of hope and joy emerging from their sorrow and uncertainty. And they felt courage emerging from their timidity. Their hearts were on fire with a renewed sense of purpose, calling, and hope. They were all together in one place, and they woke up to the reality that the same life-giving Spirit that empowered Jesus was now available for them and available to all those seeking to follow the way of Christ. It is not some strange, old, and irrelevant story, folks. What happened to them can happen to us. The Spirit of God showed them the way forward and can show us the way forward. The Spirit of God gave them enthusiasm, zeal, courage, a renewed sense of commitment. The Spirit of God can give us that too. The Spirit of God brought them clarity of identity and a renewed sense of meaning and purpose. And the Spirit of God can give us that too. Those early disciples had been waiting, watching, praying. And as they gathered together in one place, the Spirit of God moved among them. They were all together in one place, and they woke up